I'm going to step in and simply say, as of today, a trans woman's greatest protection is her invisibility. And as hard as that may be, everything that society is currently setting a trans woman up as far as protection-wise is concerned is to make her invisible. Right now, a trans woman's only means to having identification that is congruent with her identity is to actually have some form of gender confirmation surgery. And in my opinion, that sounds a bit like eugenics. Because who is to say that you can make a sweeping blanket indictment that every single trans person wants their reproductive organs removed? So again, as I'm saying, is that what that is doing is saying to us, the only way we will allow you into our society is if you forfeit your reproductive rights. And again, going back to that is concerned, that varies from office to office. So I have trans women that will go to get their state ID where it can say female, but then they walk over to birth certificate and it says, oh no, sorry, you haven't had, certain sex change. So now they go to Social Security, and that just depends on the benevolence of the person that's sitting there.
Right.
Depends on your passability, depends on the mood that person's in, depends on the person just saying, okay, fine, you know what, yeah, sure, change. So see, right now, though I applaud Illinois for being in the forefront of gender equality, there still leaves a whole lot to be desired, because while we might have things that sound good on paper, no one's really policing entities to see if in fact these procedures are being executed. We don't know. You can't prove to somebody that I discriminate against you because I perceive you to be a gender other than what you are representing. We don't know. We don't know that. I heard you guys speak about voicing your complaints, which is amazing, which is what is needed. Unfortunately, only 7% of trans people voice their complaints, and that's because according to the transgender National Equality Survey that they just did, maybe like in 2011, 90% report fear and distrust of police. And as people of color, we can attest to that, whether you are cisgender, whether you are transgender, whatever you are on the gender spectrum. So just imagine being in a marginalized population that is policed at every turn and that is forgotten by your own LG and D.
This a point that I also wanted to make that shows that there is also an economic component to even being able to undergo gender assignment surgery. So we have a prominent Pritzker that recently, I don't know if she did the full surgery, but underwent that whole change. And so how is that accepted, number one, but the ability to have the ways and means to do that is not afforded those in the community that do not have the economic means to do that. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on some of the disparities that exist that allow, even within the LGBT community, your economics can determine your level of acceptability and your ability to actually live out what you feel that you are.
And that also touches on something that came up in Kim's panel, just being able to pay for prescriptions, right? Where you've got to pay for hormone treatment, for example, and what happens when you've got those kind of economic concerns.
Yeah, in terms of trans issues, the two things I would say is that in our office we address hate crimes. And so hate crimes are often projected onto people who are different. And we all know that the crimes that are, that we can distinguish between violent crimes against lesbian and gay people versus violent crimes against trans people, and know that trans people most often will result in death.
Yeah.
And so we really do focus, prioritize educating around hate crimes and making sure that people calling the police, and or if you can't call the police, call our office, and we will go with you to file a complaint with the police. Because the police, when you have a hate crime, it has to be reported to the police. It's only through the civil rights unit that we become involved. And our role is to advocate for the victim. And so we'll help make sure that the victim stays attuned to what the next steps in their court date are, take them, help walk them in to the courtroom if they don't want to go by themselves. And so it's really, really important that we make sure that we keep talking about hate crimes and how it is affecting the trans community. Even though nationally, you can say it's over there, and you go, yeah, but it's not here. But, I would argue that it is here, and similar to discrimination complaints, what's reported does not accurately reflect what's really happening.
Right.
And so we need to be sure that we keep on talking about it, and that we raise the issues so that we all become involved and advocate around that. And then in terms of filing complaints of discrimination, we do get a number of complaints from transgender individuals. And I would say that coming to our office is not about going to the police. It's really about coming to our office and dealing with people who recognize that discrimination comes in many forms, and that our staff will help walk you through the process. You don't need an attorney to file a complaint of discrimination. Our staff will walk you through to make sure that you fill out the form correctly, to identify what the basis of your discrimination complaint is. And then once substantial evidence is found, and if you move forward in the administrative hearing process, then you might want to have legal representation. But to initiate it, you don't really need it.
If I could say something. Right now, when I think about where trans people are at as far as society and the fight for our rights, we're at the same place that African Americans were when their only protection again was to render to themselves to pass for white. And that's where we're at. That's our correlation. Is that we're at that same stage right now. Is that that's our only protection. And even with that being said, we force ourselves into this modern day plissage, and that being the sex trade industry. And it's not because we want to, but again, it goes back to social economic disparities. What are we supposed to do?
And so certainly, if you feel like you have an invisible, a cloak of invisibility, and you don't feel like you have a voice, then there's going to be fewer complaints. There's going to be less advocacy in terms of trying to encourage folks to come out and engage the community in what's going on. And I think this is a room full of people that can really help to make that transition happen. Let me turn to the group out here. Are there questions?
I actually have a comment and kind of a question. And understand exactly what you mean. We talked about how, what happened to the T. Monica Roberts was actually talking with us about it. But I want to say to you, don't feel like you're alone. The transgender people should be. And I'm saying that for the LGBT because I can walk past any man in here who is gay. I'm not a man, you know that. You know that will not speak to me. So in our own community, we don't even show the same respect or level of anything. So this is a good conversation, but before those people out there give a hoot about what we're talking about with those, we've got to get together in our own community and stand up for it.
I'm going to ask you, this will be the last comment or question.
Yeah, it's a comment. I'm like a drop in the ocean in this group. I speak with accent. It means I'm a foreigner, but I've been in this country for 30 years now. My name is John Adewoye, and I'm from Nigeria. I run Courage Nigeria. I have a comment I want to thank you for at least mentioning the gay immigrants, and also for talking about the transgender. I decided to come here to this program because I thought we were going to discuss something in depth also about gay immigrants. But I've been told that could come up in another during another forum. But economically, as I said, I run Courage Nigeria, based here, and I have gay immigrants going through asylum process. 2 of them live in the house with me. I have a number of others scattered around the country, and supporting them to find a footing coming into this country is not easy. My annual income has not gone beyond 60,000, but that is what we share most of the time. And economically, what would you suggest to the, not just to our community, but to the system, to the American system, to aid, LGBT people coming from homophobic countries? It's not just people from Africa. We have 2 sets. Middle East is never a comfortable home, and Africa, even South Africa, that is accepting constitutionally, is not. So people look to America and Europe. But what would you suggest to? And then to my sister, do you have a national body for transgender? Because I have one of us going through big stress now. She has done everything, and she has transitioned from a well-positioned family, as you say, in Nigeria, the father a professor in a university and so on, but she's on her own, and she's going through a lot of stress.
I'm gonna say, if you can take 30 seconds to respond, and you can take 30 seconds to respond, and then we'll wrap that up, and I'll invite you guys to talk with these folks after it's done, because I know Lisa has wrap up to do, and I also know Affinity
right,
is
I actually
really
wanted
big.
to share Affinity, not to cut you off, Affinity actually has an immigration program. It's called Building Bridges. And we went through our own intensive engagement process to get clarity on our own position about immigration. One of the stats that had significance for us was that at least 2/3 of Black lesbians are coupled with a partner that's an immigrant. So it had significant relevance for us, and therefore we put a specific initiative into place. So we're happy to talk more with you about that. It is not to suggest, and again, when I said to you, it's not necessarily what we're taking up today. This is a beginning place, which is why the forum was created, to say what are the other areas that are salient that we should be taking up, because we as the convening body will take the guidance from the people.
Thank you. 30 seconds.
I think just understanding and pushing forth or broadening the immigration movement. I think a lot of times, especially in the United States, we boil it down to Mexicans coming to the United States, not understanding that there are immigrants that come from so many other countries that are part of, that are invested in what decision they make federally about how immigrants are able to come and how they're able to live in this country. For me, I know so many of my colleagues, my peers, I'm first generation, but when you come here, it's hard. It's hard when you're just for me, being heterosexual is hard as an immigrant. So, and what they're coming to is they're not coming to a welcoming community. So for example, we know that you're invisible. In fact, it's better for you to be invisible if you are LGBTQ than to dare say something. And if you know like how our parents are, if you dare to say something about being not heterosexual, you know, that's a serious matter. So part of it is educating the immigrant communities on how to be more welcoming, more open, because we do live here now at least, where there's some more flexibility around how we can express and how we can, you know, be accepting of LGBTQ individuals. So we need to educate ourselves as an immigrant or first generation or those of us who live here, and then begin to really talk about access to jobs. Like, how do we strengthen our community to be able to make connections so we can get access to jobs? Different things, how to navigate this system. I think those are the barriers that we face. And so when you come here as an immigrant and you're also identified as LGBTQ, you have that extra level of barriers. But in addition to what's happening federally and with the city of Chicago and so on, the immigrant community here also needs to be educated on how to be better about welcoming our own even if they identify as LGBTQ.
Thank you. Amara.
You know, it's really rough to serve the immigrant community because of the fear, and you know, nobody wants to raise the specter of any type of difference. And then there are many people who don't have legal protections here. And so the city of Chicago is a sanctuary city, so therefore if you came to our office and you want to make a complaint of discrimination, we don't care whether you're here legally or not. We will pursue that complaint. But having said that, there are some risk factors involved, because it's a public record. Once you come and make a complaint, it's very easy for the respondent to then identify ICE and or somebody to come, you know. So there are real issues here. But I will say that we will investigate complaints of discrimination regardless of whether you're here legally or not. On the other hand, I also want to say that there are a lot of issues with immigrant businesses who come to the country and are not aware of what their legal responsibilities are in terms of non-discrimination issues. And so oftentimes we will go out and talk to businesses, sometimes in the African American community, who may not be respecting the communities in which they're in. And so we try to mediate some of those differences. And so there are a lot of different ways to kind of address immigrant communities. But mostly we try to serve it. We try to reach beyond the language and the cultural barriers. And mostly it's about communicating.
Please join me in thanking